Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Ghost Church. If this is your first time, welcome. My name is Matthew. I was an executive at Cameo and then Meta and worked in the tech industry for about 6 or 7 years and rose the ranks very quickly there, became a prominent person, and through that process sort of discovered the secret of life or the meaning of life, which I think is to move toward healing for yourself and then also help heal others. So healing for self and healing for others is basically the whole point. Both of those that's very simple, but it's very hard in my opinion. And so I started Ghost Church because I want this to be an underground insurgency of people who are hell-bent on healing themselves and healing other people as well. So I'm pretty new at this. I've been doing this for maybe like a month and a half or so, and I kind of just needed an outlet for talking about some of these concepts and things. And it's been going really well. I've had lots of people reach out, ask questions, and so it's been really cool to get to know some of you. So I have some surprises on this stream, so we can continue to build the community. I know that Discord is like a very common way of going about this, but I've been a part of a lot of Discord communities and I don't ultra love it. So we're going to use Slack, and the reason people don't use Slack is because it's paid. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to charge people $10 a month, and then you can be part of our Slack community, and we'll talk about that toward the end of the stream. But it's been really, really awesome to learn about who you guys are and who you're helping and what different challenges you have. So I've loved the conversation, and I'm always open to additional chatting. Feel free to chat during the stream or send me messages. I'll let you know how you can get in contact with me at the end of the stream. But welcome to Ghost Church. If you have any sort of ideas or thoughts on things you would like to know more about, I'm open to discussing various topics. So far, I've kind of just been doing what's top of mind for me, and as the world unfolds around us, things that I think are important to know. And as I said, we're going to focus on discussions that help us heal ourselves and then also help us heal other people around us. So very challenging to heal self, very challenging to heal others, but we're not fucking around. Okay, so today's topic is how to build a better world, and this kind of is a capstone or a sort of a bookend to the month and a half that we've done so far. Last week or the week before, I think last week I had a bit of a family emergency, so I wasn't able to stream, but the week before we kind of set up a lot of the issues or problems with the United States in particular, especially now as we're shitting the bed internationally with the trade war and just being completely schizophrenic all around. No offense to schizophrenic people. I have some schizophrenic friends, but maybe unpredictable is a better word. So we talked about that and why that's occurring and what our role in that could be. And so this is essentially an alternative path forward or an alternative timeline for planet Earth. My thoughts on what we can do to build a better world. So I'm going to just kind of walk through that. And again, feel free to chat. I have the chat window up here, so happy to answer questions. And if you aren't able to join live and you're watching this later, the website, I'll show it at the end, but the website has a contact form. Feel free to contact me and ask questions, and I'll respond to those questions next stream. Okay, so how to build a better world. So a little bit of framing here that I thought might be helpful. We're not really talking about left or right. As I've talked about in the past, I'm aggressively nonpartisan, so I don't really feel like extremes in either direction are in any way helpful. And there's some stuff on the left that I agree with, and there's some stuff on the right that I agree with. In general, like, for example, the goal of getting rid of government corruption, I feel like should be everyone's fucking goal. Like, not a right goal, not a left goal. Like, we want to remove government corruption. The issue I have is I don't feel like the plan that the left people have or the plan that the right people have accomplishes that goal very well. I think the devil is in the execution, and I don't think the right or the left has good execution at all. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But basically what I'm proposing here is nothing that's left and nothing that's right, but instead we're interested in moving forward. So that's going to be kind of the catchphrase of this. And then the last little piece that I wanted to mention here is it's not really progressive or conservative. It's constructive. If you want to be destructive, this is not the place for you. We don't want to shy away from anything that's challenging. We want to rise to the occasion, and sometimes force is necessary. Often force is necessary, as we've talked about in the past. Force is the language of a lot of different things. Force is the language of the universe. The star pulls on the planets, keeps them in orbit, keeps things stable. Force is the language of cells. If you exert force on your cells, they respond and adapt. Pretty much anything in the entire universe and reality, force is the language of. So force is not necessarily bad in any way, I wouldn't say. But we're not interested in using force for destructive purposes. We're interested in using force for constructive purposes. So that's what we're about here. So I wanted to do that bit of framing first. All right, let me move forward here. This is a software program that I've been using for the last couple weeks. Some of you have asked about it. So this software program is called Figma. This is what I use to design software and apps. So I've had a variety of different jobs in a variety of different startups and also larger tech companies as well. And so this is the gold standard for how we build apps and design them and things. So I'm happy to go into more of that. I'm using it just because it's a piece of software that I know, and it's pretty stripped down and no frills. Not trying to impress anyone here, just trying to be as accurate and as close to reality as possible and give my as honest of thoughts that I have as possible. Okay, so the first step in this kind of like how to build a better world plan is how to face reality. So basically what I was just talking about. So how do I face reality as a person? I have noticed a lot of people have trouble with this. And this is a very common cognitive bias thing. And we've talked about cognitive biases before on this stream, but I think just biologically, people's brains will make up a bunch of scenarios in order to justify whatever they think is reality. So they'll often kind of like basically hallucinate reality, or you've probably heard it said that perception is a huge chunk of reality. So people will perceive something or assume something or just kind of have this idea about what something is. Oftentimes it's a projection or an assumption or them just kind of making it up as a way of managing their own ego or their own self-image. But oftentimes that perception of what reality is actually not reality. This is a huge issue in my family. This is a huge issue in a lot of the friends that I used to have. Now I basically will prioritize friendships in which people have a firm grasp of reality, and I basically have a hard sort of deal breaker position on that. If it becomes clear that you are disconnected from reality, I will absolutely cut you out of my life. And as I said, this is challenging. It's simple but not easy, which is probably going to be the theme for today. So how do I face reality? It's a constant sort of vigilance that I practice, and it was not easy. In fact, I'm still, learning where I'm deceiving myself, learning things that I don't know. And so I think it's just a daily, lifelong journey to do this. But I think what's most important is that people are consciously aware and consciously intentional that they are trying to do this, instead of just believing something because it's convenient or it's comfortable, or believing something because they want to. They're actually trying to sync their perception with actual reality. So one of the first things that I do on a daily basis is I try to shift from ego to cosmos. So basically from self-focused to having like a cosmic understanding of life and reality. Let me shift to this. So I look up lots of different videos. I showed a few streams ago. So I'm going to show a different one today. But basically, like, there's tons of these videos, and daily I will try to watch some sort of video that puts my own existence in perspective within the context of the larger story of the planet, how long the planet has been here, within the larger story of animals, how long animals have been here and how much they've changed over time, within the larger story of the universe, how long the universe has been here, where it came from, the planet, like all kinds of different things. In this case, I'm just going to show this guy is hilarious and awesome. He quit his job, and I don't know, I guess he's self-taught with visual effects or something, but basically he in this video, he's taking galaxies and turning them into pieces of cereal, and he's trying to visualize the entire known universe as pieces of cereal in swimming pools. So every single piece of cereal is a different galaxy, and galaxies are gigantic. They have thousands of Earths. So planets exactly like this one, there's thousands of them in each of these galaxies, and this is the number of galaxies that are happening. And then let me get you to the actual sort of punchline. So as you can see, I'll just let it play, I think, from here. But basically, as you can see, his question was, if I turned all the galaxies in the known universe into pieces of cereal, how many swimming pools would it fill up? And the answer is just a ridiculous amount of them. So these are all the galaxies as pieces of cereal. And so it not only fills up one pool, but it fills up all of these pools, which you can see. It's just like ridiculous. So basically, the point is, this is the number of galaxies out there, and the number of planets and stars in each galaxy is mind-boggling in and of itself, and the number of galaxies out there is mind-boggling in and of itself. In fact, where the Earth is right now, it's never been here before, and it never will be here again, because our galaxy is moving through space, and our star is moving through the galaxy, and our planet is moving through the stars. So we're just like moving all over the place. And so it's one of the reasons why time travel would never work, is because even if you could figure out how to travel back in time, you would have to calculate the total motion of all entities in the universe, the expansion of the universe, how the galaxy is moving in the universe, how our star is moving in the galaxy, how the planet is moving around the star. And you would have to basically teleport the time traveler to another point in time when the Earth actually was there, which is impossible. So if you were to time travel, you'd basically end up in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of space, because the planet and the star and the galaxy haven't arrived at this point yet. So in space yet. So it might be the right time, but the planet is just completely somewhere else. So you'd never be able to travel back in time. Basically, you just end up in space. Is basically that point. But anyway, the point is, on a daily basis, I will try to watch at least one piece of content that helps me contextualize my own existence within the larger story. And I think that really helps face reality, because I think, especially in America, with all the ads and different things that we have pointed at us, pointed at us, we tend to think that we're the center of the universe, or the center of our universe, which is absolutely incorrect. I think a lot of people will kind of like assume or desire that their immediate needs should determine the world of priorities, and that's absolutely not correct. You're part of a much larger story, and generally, overall, like decently insignificant. You're definitely a special person, but within the context of the larger story, like in 100 years, no one will have any idea who you were or remember you on any level whatsoever. And where you are existing is a very thin slice of the entire story of the universe and the planet. And that's a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow, but I think it's absolutely essential and a fantastic starting point for actually grappling with reality instead of sort of this fantasy existence that a lot of people have on a daily basis. I also think that this is sort of why sometimes when someone tells someone else something, they'll kind of hear what they want to hear instead of actually hearing what you said, is because they're kind of used to filtering the inputs that they get from the outside world, the data stream that's coming in. They're used to kind of filtering it and turning it into their own fantasy reality. And what we want to do is we want to be aware of that and arrest it and actually focus on what is the real thing that's happening here. What are they really saying? What is the real claim here? What is the real story of our existence? What are we really trying to accomplish? Like all of those questions. And then number 2 is a daily reflection on anicca. So I talked about this concept a number of weeks ago, but basically it's the idea that the only constant in the entire universe is change. There's nothing that's really permanent on any level whatsoever. So your job will change, your partners will probably change, your relationships will change, your health will change. Like all that stuff is just constantly changing. And I think people sort of generally want to have a sense of safety and security and don't want to accept the reality that nothing is really safe or secure. Everything is constantly changing. So the only constant in the universe is change. And so I try to do a daily reflection on this. So every morning I will ask myself, what is something about me that has changed in the last year? And what is something about me that has changed throughout my lifetime? Just any time in my lifetime. And on a daily basis, I will ask that question. And so I'll get through the easy ones relatively quickly, like what's something that's changed in the last year, like my hair style changed or the clothing that I own changed. And then what's something that's changed over the course of my lifetime, like what my passions are, what my focus is, like my level of fitness, like there's a bunch of different things. But on a daily basis, basically, I will just bring to my attention things about myself that have changed within the last year and then things that have changed within the course of my life. And I have an Apple Note and I'll just write them down. And it just helps me realize that even no matter what's happening, where I'm at with my career right now, or where I'm at with my friendships right now, or where I'm at with relationships or anything, that it's temporary and next year might bring a completely different thing and I have no idea. Just like this year looks very different from the previous year and from this part of my life looks very different from the previous part of my life and different seasons of my life. It's not something I think people consciously and actively reflect on often. So this is a fantastic way of facing reality. It's just realizing the reality that changes happening constantly and there is nothing you can really kind of count on. Your partner could get hit by a bus tomorrow. Your job could be up in smoke tomorrow, as a lot of people are finding out who work in the government in America, or in science in America. And then the last piece here that I find tremendously helpful for facing reality is asking myself the question, what reality do I not want to face? And I think this is because our brains like to feel safe and like to feel secure. And so they'll often obscure or hide things from us. Like our subconscious is almost like doing magic tricks to help us not even care or face or be aware of realities that would cause us pain or cause us to feel unsafe or not secure. And the goal is to try to figure out what those are and bring those to the front and face them head on. So this is a heavy-hitting question that I ask myself every day. Some days I do not have an answer. Some days I do. But it's a heavy-hitting question that you should absolutely ask yourself if you're interested in facing reality. So that's the first step in this journey of building a better world, is actually getting in sync with reality. Again, simple, but not easy. So these are the three things that I would do if I were trying to start on that journey. And then to build on that concept, I think one of the things that pisses me off the most about the right is they're really good about the conviction piece. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago. They're so great at the conviction piece and it sells. They're able to get the support of tons of people, even though they're completely disconnected from reality. Like take abortion, for example. If you want to decrease abortions, you actually increase abortion options and healthcare overall, then the abortion numbers go down. But as soon as you start legalizing it and locking it down and creating a bunch of regulations and a shame-based culture around it, then abortion rates go up. But for some reason, they just say with high conviction, they're like, yes, we need to outlaw abortion. And everyone's like, yeah, which is dumb as fuck. And so they're disconnected from reality, but they've nailed the conviction piece. And so what I'm proposing here is that we also nail the conviction piece, but we just pair it with reality. So if we went around saying like, yes, we agree that we want abortions to be decreased, that sounds like a good outcome. Here's how you actually accomplish that and be really high conviction about it. I think part of the problem is that groups who are not the right, at least in America, and I'd say most of the developed countries globally I've seen as well, get really afraid of conviction for some reason. They're like, whoa, we could do this, and like we should like do a study and see like a feasibility study and like do all this stuff. And it's just like not compelling at all. And so I'm basically proposing that we pair conviction and being high conviction, which is compelling, with actual reality. So for example, science is not optional, it's foundational. And science in general is trying to get us in sync with reality as possible. If you're a scientist and you make a discovery and a new data comes out, but you love your discovery so much and or whatever, and you don't want to update your model because you love your own discovery and you're so into it and you've gotten published because of it and all that stuff, even though there's new data that contradicts what you've been saying, then fuck you. You're a horrible scientist. You're not actually doing science. And it's likewise with the other side too. People who deny science and who are like, science can't tell you anything. Like, fuck you too. Science is a process. It's the best process we have right now for getting as in sync with reality as possible. And it's never perfect and it's always wrong. So today, science will be wrong. Tomorrow, hopefully, science will be less wrong. In a year, science will hopefully be less wrong. And the goal is to just get less wrong over time. There's never going to be a point where we have perfect knowledge, so it will always be some degree of wrong. But the goal is to get less wrong over time. As time increases, the level of wrongness goes down, which means that you're getting more and more in sync with reality. New data will always come out. New discoveries will always happen. But to throw science out completely because parts of it are wrong, which is normal, is completely stupid. So we need to, I think, have a more accurate opinion about science and see it for what it is, which is a fantastic tool for getting in sync with reality, which means that it's not in any way optional. It's foundational. We absolutely have to have it. And the bad actors in science, like the people I was talking about, who get really, really in love with their own model or their own discoveries or like a certain way of thinking and are not able to accept new data, we need to figure out how to get them out of science, basically. So that's the first piece of conviction plus reality is science is not optional, it's foundational. The second thing is that healthcare, education, and economic stability are not handouts. It's very hard to do anything in the world at all. Go to your job, take care of your kids, sleep, cook a meal, like go out to eat with friends, like anything. It's almost impossible to do absolutely anything in this world if you feel like crap. If you feel like shit and your health sucks, you can't really do anything. So I don't know, like, and yet there's people who are like, we don't really need healthcare. It's like, yeah, everybody needs healthcare. Everybody needs to feel good and be healthy. And you can't really do anything else if your health sucks. So healthcare needs to be first and foremost. It's not a handout. It's a basic right. It's a precondition to liberty. You're not free to do stuff, and you don't have the liberty to do stuff if you don't have your health. So it's a precursor. It's essential. It's foundational. Healthcare. Education, same thing. You can't do something if you don't know how to do it. If you want to be a race car driver, but you don't know how to be a race car driver, you can't be a race car driver. You need to learn how to be a race car driver first. If you want to be a boxer, you need to learn how to be a boxer. If you want to be a doctor, you need to learn how to be a doctor. This isn't fucking rocket science. Like, people who are like against education are fucking morons. Like, education and learning should be a foundational piece of everything that we do. And again, it's a precondition to liberty. If I want to feel free to pursue a career or to have a family or to do whatever, I need to be able to learn things and have education. So again, education is a precondition to liberty. Same with economic stability. If you're constantly stressed about paying rent or paying your mortgage or how are you going to pay the bills or how are you going to feed your family, then you don't have liberty. You're a slave to figuring out how to make enough money. You definitely don't have freedom. You definitely don't have liberty. So health, education, and economic stability are not handouts. They've been branded as handouts by the right, but you guys are fucking morons. They're preconditions to freedom and liberty. That's what they are. So it's about damn time for us, everyone in America and in the entire world, to get on to that train. And if you disagree with that, you're absolutely wrong. The third thing is that freedom equals opportunity plus security. This kind of ties into what I just said, and it's kind of a restatement of it. But in order to be as forceful about this as possible, I decided to include it here because it's nice and short. But basically, freedom equals opportunity plus security. This is something that we've absolutely lost in America. A lot of people don't have opportunity and a lot of people don't have security. So how can you have freedom? You can't. I am a big proponent of freedom. The right, for some reason, feel like they own that word, which, again, fuck you. You don't. I 100% believe that people should be free to pursue their own happiness and pursue their own dreams. But you literally cannot do that if you don't have the opportunity to do it and if you don't have the security to allow you to do that. So what we've essentially done and in a lot of places, this has never been the case. And getting it to this level everywhere in the world would be the goal. And we definitely need to return to this in America for sure. Is making sure that everyone has the opportunities a reasonable amount of opportunity and a reasonable amount of security. If we can do those two things, then people will have freedom. And there's a whole bunch of reasons which we went to last week or the week before about why the right has eroded opportunity and why the right has eroded security. And it was a very tactical decision to do so. The fourth point, which again is a little bit of a reiteration, but I wanted to again drive this point home, is that education is national defense. If you care about national defense and defending America and America surviving, education is the way to do it. Otherwise, other people build better innovations than you. Other people are able to outmatch you playing these various games, the security game, the military game, the economic game, like whatever. We're going to get our asses handed to us because we're going to keep getting checkmated by people who know more than we do. So we have to keep our level of education high. If you're the kind of person who thinks that America should be uneducated and that's how we win, then you're a fucking moron. And you need to learn and educate yourself on how these things actually are won and why various players in the world have won and have beat us in various areas. It's sort of like saying, I'm going to be a professional football player, but I'm not going to learn the rules of the game. Like, that's just ridiculous. If you had a favorite football player or whatever, pick your sport, baseball, basketball, whatever, and they just obstinately refuse to learn any of the rules of the game, they would lose. They would not be able to win. And so if national defense and making America amazing is a goal that you have, then education is absolutely essential to getting there. There's been a lot of anti-education rhetoric lately, and it just bugs the hell out of me, and it's just so dumb. It's like just shooting ourselves in the foot. It's like getting an NBA contract and being like, whatever. I'm not even going to learn how to play basketball. Like, what the hell kind of chaos is that shit? And then the fifth one is pro-family. So this is one that I'm personally very passionate about. I think we want to make sure that children are in stable homes with loving relationships. And this goes for all levels of people as well. Like, I'm a big proponent of found family and being in stable, loving relationships all throughout life, but especially as kids. I know lots of white, stereotypical male, female parent families where the relationships are not stable and the relationships are not loving. There's a lot of abuse happening. There's a lot of terrible things happening in that family. And then I have other families that I know of and who I'm good friends with where it's a non-traditional family in some way, but it's much more stable and it's much more loving. And so this idea of being pro-family has more to do with the quality of the relationships than it looking at or a certain way, like some sort of arbitrary rules about like the gender of the people or any of that stuff. That's completely ridiculous. What we need to care about is how well taken care of those kids are, how stable it is, how loving it is. Those are the main things. That might sound leftist, but it's absolutely not. It's like if you had a friend group, but every one of your friends was super abusive, would that be healthy? Like, no. And it's the same with family. Just because it looks a certain way does not mean it's in any way healthy. So we want to prioritize reality and health with family, not just fitting some sort of preconceived ideal for some reason. What's really funny about this one too is that a lot of times people who are adamant about families looking a certain way are like hardcore religious people, and they will often reference their religious text of choice, which almost never describes what family should look like. They're just reading that interpretation onto the text. It's very funny every time. Okay, so, and then the last one here is capitalism serves democracy, not the other way around. So I sort of went through a phase where I was very anti-capitalism and would kind of actively do things that would avoid capitalism. And I think as I've gotten older, I've realized that that's a terrible idea, just not because of the ideology itself, but because the entire world is basically built on capitalism. So it's kind of like you can wish all day long that you weren't playing chess and you were instead playing checkers. But if you're playing chess, you need to actually play by the rules of chess. While unfortunate and while you may wish that you were playing checkers instead, the reality is that you're playing chess. And so you need to get good at playing chess. And the reality is right now at this point in human history, which is a brief moment, but it's the world we're living in, most of the world is capitalistic in some form. And so to just basically be like, I don't like capitalism, it sucks, is not helpful on any level whatsoever. That being said, I don't think we need to embrace capitalism as the most important thing. I think that capitalism should serve democracy, not the other way around. And there are examples of this in the world today where this is working as it should be working. It's just not working that way in America, which tells me that it can be done. How long can it be done until it turns the other direction and then capitalism starts making democracy its bitch? Like, I'm not sure. All I know is that it does exist and it has existed for a decent chunk of time in various places. So therefore, I know it's possible. So I think what we want to do is make sure that capitalism is serving democracy. And I have some thoughts on how we actually accomplish each of these. As I said earlier, the devil is in the execution. So I have some sort of step-by-step things that we'll get into in future weeks on each of these 6 points. But I'm going to move on for now to the next. So this is how you do conviction plus reality in our goal of building a better world. Another thing that I want to chat about is courage plus intellect. I talked a little bit about this last week, but I think the left often has this kind of like lack of courage vibe. They're kind of like pansy asses who aren't very high conviction and like you don't feel like they could actually kind of get shit done or accomplish anything. They're just kind of like endlessly talking here and not able to actually like, yeah, they're just weak sauce kind of vibe. And then the right comes across as dumb as hell. Just very like kind of brute force kind of morons. And what I think we need is a combination of the two. I think we want people who embody courage and who are willing to like go out there and charge in and get stuff done. And then we also need people who are smart and value intellect as well. So it's this kind of pairing of courage plus intellect as opposed to doubling down on just brute force or doubling down on intellect. I don't really understand why it's become so polarized like that. And it annoys the hell out of me. But a few points here just to kind of make sure it's clear is intellect asks why. Courage dares to ask what if. So ask yourself one scary question per day is the recommendation here. So I try to, anything that feels scary to me, I try to face it head on. It's definitely a discipline that I've developed over time, but basically as soon as I kind of, any of my lights on my dashboard start going off that something is kind of scary, I turn toward it instead of turning away from it. And that's just a learned behavior. You have to feel yourself becoming afraid or becoming scared. And instead of turning away or avoiding it, you want to turn toward it and look at it right dead in the eyes. Just face it as head on as possible. So instead of just asking, like, the left often is just like, oh, well, this is happening. Why is it happening? They're trying to like figure it out, which I like to figure out problems. And so that appeals to me. But courage dares to ask, what if? Like, okay, it's a fine question to ask why, but we also need to ask, what if we could change it? Or what if we could make the world differently? Or what if we didn't do that? Or what if that wasn't the case? Which is often much scarier, especially for people on the left, because they just don't like to go there. And so I'm saying we have to go there. And then the second thing is that intellect wants to know. That's the main goal, is to know. Courage ventures into the unknown. So you don't have to know to go, right? Like people who are sailing to map out Antarctica, they don't know what they're going to find, but they have the courage to do so. The whole point of courage is to jump into the unknown. And intellect people do not like doing that. They like to work to know. They're like map makers. They just go and they map things. And if they don't know something, they'll like not move forward until they do know, and then they'll move on. But that's not always helpful. It's okay to jump into the unknown and not know what the outcome will be, not know how things will affect anything else. Not wait for things to be perfect or like reasonably sure of anything before you actually start doing stuff or start making changes. That's a very scary position for a lot of people on the left. And that's why I say we need to pair both of those things. We need courage plus intellect. So the recommendation here is to read one thing per week, I would say, that challenges your worldview. I do this regularly. If I'm researching a topic, I will actively research as many different sides of that topic as possible. So if I, let's say, am a Christian, which I'm not, but let's say that I'm a Christian and I want to research if there's evidence for young earth creationism, I would read books that try to disprove young earth creationism. I would read books that try to prove evolution, for example. So if you have, and the reason people often don't do that is because they lack courage. So ask yourself one scary question per day, and then read one thing that challenges your worldview per week. So this is a concept that I've thought a lot about over the last years of life, that I want to try to bring back. It's kind of an antiquated concept, but every time I see a film depicting this or people talk about it in a video game or something, I'm always very intrigued and drawn to it. And we don't really have an analog for this in the modern world. But I like various parts of this concept. And so I am putting it on this list of how we build a better world. And I'm also going to try to explain what I think it means in 2025. I think it means radical ownership of mistakes, basically. I think if you come across someone and they're a straight shooter and they deal straight up with you, people often have this concept of like, I can count on them, I can rely on them, I know what I'm getting, like I feel safe and secure with them. And I think that's what honor is in 2025. It's the CEO who is like, you know what, we fucked up, we're wrong about that. And you know what, we're going to work to make it better. That's what I would say honor is in 2025. A few examples here. A small one that just happened to me. I'm meeting a friend in Chicago and we're planning our travel. And I triple checked on the dates and he was like, oh, those are not the dates as far as I know. And I was like, oh, and then I explained a little bit more about why I thought they were the dates. And then he was like, oh, you know what? I made a mistake. You are right. And it's like just little things like that. Where people take ownership of their own mistakes that I think go a long way. In fact, if someone isn't able to do it on the small stuff, I kind of don't trust them at all because I think it's actually easier to take ownership of mistakes on the large stuff and a lot harder to take ownership of mistakes on the small stuff. Like, for example, I did personal training for a couple years and I really got a lot of value out of my trainer, but she had this interesting thing where she would not want to take ownership of mistakes. Like she forgot a piece of equipment one time and it took her like a month to tell me that she had forgotten it. So that's an example of like not owning a small mistake that I think is a big red flag. And I think honor in 2025 means owning the mistakes on a small level, like radical ownership. I have a video clip. I think the audio will work. I'm going to try playing it for you. It's one of my favorite clips of all time. So we'll see if this works.
I was dead at the time. Then when you're more mature, you do start telling the truth in odd situations. I'm sorry, I've broken a glass, I've broken this. Is that an expense? I've broken, I'll pay for that, I'm sorry. And you do that to the people in the room, might go, what a strong personality that person has. I like to have sex with people with strong personalities. And I broke other things, I've smashed that, and that's gone, and I've just thrown the cat out the window, and... Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, you get it. Okay. And then a large example, which we probably don't need, but I'll say it because it's on the slide, is I had a coworker one time who ordered, it was a small organization, they didn't have much money, and she ordered $3,000 worth of books and sent it to the wrong place. And it was like right before a conference or something where we needed the books to like hand out or something. And she felt so awful. And I could just feel like her walking into my boss's office to explain what had happened. She was just like so distraught and nervous. But I was very impressed with her courage and her honor, the honor that she displayed in that moment, where she was just like, you know what? I'm going to face the music. I'm going to not avoid this. I'm not going to delay or try to figure out how to break it to her or ask someone else to tell my boss for me. I'm going to face it myself. And I think that was a big, I was just very impressed with that. And sometimes do well with this and sometimes don't. And I think it's just like a lot of stuff that we've talked about. Like it's a continual journey to try to get more and more aligned with reality, more and more aligned with honor, more and more aligned with courage as time goes on. But I think without this, we can't really build a better world if people are just making mistakes, trying to cover it up, trying to blame other people. Like it's never going to work. It might work in the short term, and this is the tactic that the right uses a lot. And I just feel like it may work in the short term, but ultimately it was bites you in the ass. And so it's just not worth it to do it. It's sort of like you can fill up your car with the wrong kind of gasoline and it works for a while, but ultimately it'll ruin your car and you have to buy a different car. So like, well, it might be cheaper for months or years. Ultimately, it's more expensive. And that's how I feel with honor as well. All right, so moving on. What we're not interested in doing is building a cult. We're interested in building a coalition. So I wanted to make this clear, especially as we get into some of the tactical stuff that I teased at the beginning of this live stream, is I'm not really interested in building like a new religion or a new cult of any kind. That being said, I do want to have strong principles and stick to those principles and be like pretty militant about it, which is one of that kind of dogmatic position is often associated with religions or cults. So I think of it more of like a code, if you want to call it that, like the Pirates Code from Pirates of the Caribbean. But I like thinking of it less of a cult and more of a coalition. So it's like-minded people who are willing to be disciplined and live by a certain code. So here's what I did. I basically set up a linear project, which is a project management service, and kind of broke down different things that we can all do to participate in this, like tactical things. And then I also have a Slack that I've been running that for like years at this point, but I'm now going to open it up to people from Ghost Church. So anyone who wants to participate in building a better world, Slack charges me about $9 a month or so right now, but their prices tend to increase over time. I think it started at like $4 or $5 a month. So I'm putting this at $10 per month. And a religion will charge the people who go to the church 10% of their income per month. They basically guilt trip people into giving 10% of their income per month. And so it's not 10% a month, it's $10 per month. And it basically almost all of it goes to Slack. And the $1 that doesn't go to Slack, I'll basically use to pay for some of the software that I'm using to make this happen, like Figma, and there's a few other pieces as well. And then I have the website, which I'm hosting as well. So there is some cost associated with this. But I personally am not making any money from this. So if you'd like to be a part of the Slack and be a part of actually like check basically what you would get in return for that is check in every single day, me checking in, making sure you're doing okay, seeing how everything's going, just on like a personal level. And then also like biohacking and turning your body and mind into a Corvette kind of thing. So partially built on my experience as an entrepreneur and as an successful executive in the tech industry for multiple years. And then also I've been getting really into fitness and nutrition, have gotten certified and have been coaching people. And so basically helping you as a person be healthy on a body level and on a mind level. And then also together we would then go out and help other people be healthy as well is the goal there. So if you want to be a part of something like that, I already have a group of people who I kind of do this with and they get a tremendous amount of value out of it. So if you want to be a part of this coalition, it's $10 a month. There's a link on, let me show you the website. So my website that I do my coaching with is called fitnerds.club, and there's a Ghost Church page on there. And at the bottom of the page, I added a join the Slack section. And if you click on it, then you basically subscribe for $10 a month, and then I will send you a Slack invite is basically how that works. So that's available. I wanted to mention all the other stuff before I got to that part. And then moving on from there, there's a few, I think 2 more pieces left on this, how to build a better world. So I wanted to make talk about the subscription piece first before going into this next piece. So another thing that we need to pay attention to that ties into the security part that I was mentioning at the very beginning is that we need to make the economy work for regular people. This is something that the right claims to do but doesn't do. And I don't think the left does this either. I don't think there's any party right now, and this ties into the capitalism thing as well. I don't think there's any party in a lot of these developed nations that actually are trying to make the economy work for regular people. There's some European countries where this is the case, but often this is not the case. And it's a major piece that we need to figure out because money, even if we don't like it, and even if we don't like capitalism, it is a part of the world that we live in. So what we need to do is play the game better than the other people play it. So we need to figure out, I have lots of thoughts on these two and we'll unpack them in the coming weeks, but we need to make taxes really simple. Right now, taxes are way too complicated, and it's intentionally complicated to get people, especially people who are like business owners or wealthy, to give them the ability to find loopholes and all kinds of shit. So we need to make taxes ultra simple. That's one thing. It's a lot harder to scam people when things are simple and straightforward. If things are complicated, it's just a breeding ground for people taking advantage of other people. So we need to cut that shit right out. So making taxes simple is the goal. Okay, good. We need to reward hard work. This is another thing that I don't see our economy supposedly, and the free market economy is supposedly supposed to do this, but it just it doesn't do it. There should be a direct relationship between how hard you work and the value that you are providing and how much reward you get. And that is not at all how it is right now. Some people are working their asses off and providing a ton of value, and they're getting shit rewards, and that is not okay. So we need to fix that. Main Street Revival, this is something I'm personally passionate about. When you walk out your front door and are walking around wherever you live, there needs to be a thriving, community-centered Main Street. I have a lot of ideas on how we can get this done and why it used to be the case but is no longer the case. But you have people who are more lonely than ever, people who are feeling more disconnected than ever, despite us having tons of ways to connect and tons of activities and things going on and tons of technology that supposedly connects us and all that stuff. So this is another key part of, I think, being human that we need to focus on, is this Main Street Revival. Again, I'll unpack this more in the coming weeks. For getting back to the health thing that we were talking about, both health for yourself and health for others, is we need care you can count on. I think one of the things that is universal across a lot of developed nations is people feel uncomfortable with the level of care that they're receiving. So even if you have good insurance and you're getting expert recommendations from medical professionals, some medical professionals, or I'd say a lot of them, will recommend procedures because it's either what's available or what their hospital is pushing or whatever, that might not be the best care for you. And likewise, people who are in the more natural space are often doing similar things. So what we need is what I'm calling care you can count on, care that you feel is actually looking out for your best interests and actually has your health at the center in reality, as opposed to just saying that that's the case, but really just kind of trying to extract as much money out of you as possible. So that's what we need. And then the last piece here is live the American dream. This is a thing that I think has completely gone by the wayside. People want the American dream, but it's not possible for pretty much anybody anymore. And instead of the promise of the American dream, I think we should all just fucking live the American dream. Like, that should be how our life is. And so I think if we do all the steps in this plan, we'll get there. And then the last piece here is, I'd say, the most important. I think this platform and how to build a better world is that we need to focus on the fact that we get shit done. I think I mentioned this 2 weeks ago as well. I think that the right is really good at this and the left is really bad at this. And I think the problem with the right is they get shit done in the short term, but then long term, their stuff all falls apart because they're dumb and they don't have much knowledge, and their solutions are often short-term solutions. So what we want is to get shit done, not just in the short term, but also in the long term. So it works now and it works later, and it builds stability and longevity long term, as well as fixing stuff in the short term as well. This is absolutely possible to do. And a few points here. I think radical transparency leads to this. Like a lot of organizations that I see that are claim to be getting shit done, they're either fudging the numbers or they're trying to make things sound better than what they are. So like what's actually happening and how much impact are you actually making, I think is really important. Getting shit done is directly linked to actual results and transparency with what's happening. Two, I'm going to use Linear and the Slack I mentioned for this, but deploying missions that make a real difference, both in your own personal life and in the lives of the people around you as well. And then lastly, we want to prioritize actual results, which I mentioned a little bit in number one. But basically, like if a lot of times, like even like nonprofits or NGOs or things, they're not really incentivized to solve the problem, because if they solve the problem, their funding goes away. So they're kind of incentivized to like work on the problem, but not really solve it. And what we want to do is prioritize actual results, as I mentioned, short term and long term. So it should be noticeably better now, and it should continue to get noticeably better far into the future. And that's what get shit done basically is. And I don't see the political system in America and in a lot of developed countries focusing on this. They kind of focus on talking or ideating or planning or like any of that stuff. And I just get so annoyed with that. And we'll talk about this more in the future too, but like it doesn't need to be perfect before you actually start going and doing things. I think a lot of times people get scared of like, oh, well, what if it affects somebody negatively? And it's like, well, that happens in life all the time. Even if you plan to an insane degree, there's always some situation that you don't foresee. There's always some sort of poor, bad actor. There's never any way to future-proof anything. And so this kind of concept that like we need to make it as bulletproof as possible before we go get our hands dirty, I completely disagree with that. We also don't want to be like willy-nilly running around, but I think I've talked about having knowledge and intellect and education and all that stuff enough in this presentation that it's clear that we wouldn't just be like believing things that are not based in reality and running around doing stuff. But we also don't want to spend so much time trying to understand reality that we lose sight of actually going and impacting and changing reality into what we want it to be. So that's pretty much all I had for this week. Again, we'll unpack more of these concepts in the future. I know there's a lot here. If you have any questions, again, it's fitnerds.club, and then there's a Ghost Church page on there. So this is the website, fitnerds.club, and then at the very top here, there's the Ghost Church link. So if you go there, there's a bunch more information about what we do here and what we're about. And then there's email updates, which I've had a surprising number of signups for. And then I have this join the Slack link as well. So feel free to do that. It's $10 a month because I need to pay Slack. And then we can talk more directly. And I'm happy to check in, make sure you're doing okay, give recommendations. We can all start building an actual community where we're helping each other achieve health and then also help bring healing to the people around us as well. So hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, reach out. Talk to you guys later. Bye.